There we go. There we go. Now you guys should be able to hear me. All right. Fixed a little problem there. Welcome. So I wrote something this morning, and I know you guys can't see it very well. I will make it larger here in a second. But I wrote a little flowchart using Google's definitions. And so I kind of want to go over in real time to see if I made any errors because I can correct it. And I don't want like the copies of the previous ones out that have minor issues like spelling issues or typos that I've already corrected. So if you guys can help me walk through this, it would be greatly appreciative in real time. I'm going to kind of go over it. And then at the end, if you leave a comment, if you see any errors in it, let me know. So basically what this is going to be saying, let me blow it up for you. There we go. What this is going to be saying is that I believe that if atheists start doing prescriptivism, where they start saying that if you lack a belief in God, you are automatically an atheist by definition, which is prescriptivism. They can't get out of that. That is exactly what prescriptivism means. It means that you're taking a definition and saying if you meet the conditions for this definition, then you are an atheist, or whatever it is the definition of. There's a lot of problems with this. Why? Because in English, words are not prescribed. They're described. Dictionaries are descriptive for the most part. They describe something. They don't prescribe. It doesn't say if you meet the conditions, you're this. It is this. If I look at something, this is what describes something. An atheist, what describes them? Well, a lack of belief does describe them. Yeah, that's true. A lack of belief that God doesn't exist describes a theist. That is also true. But these are just descriptions. It doesn't mean if you lack a belief in the non-existence of God, you're automatically a theist anymore. That if you lack a belief in God, you're an atheist. This is the problem with prescriptivism. So I wrote this flowchart, and this flowchart basically says that if you prescribe atheism, then you start having to prescribe all the other definitions that are out there, including the ones dealing with atheist or non-theist or theist. And so I have a fallacy that I coined ages ago called argumentum ad prescriptorium, which is basically trying to define a prescriptive definition from a prescriptive one. I argue that if one prescribes the definition of atheism, then anything that lacks a belief in God or gods falls under atheism, including rocks and people, which then leads to contradictions with other prescribed definitions. Arn Ra argues that rocks are atheist. This is his argument. And he argues this because he argues that the non-theist and the atheist set are the same thing. If you're a non-theist, you're an atheist. If you're an atheist, you're a non-theist. He doesn't have any differentiation between the two. And a lot of atheists don't. You're either an atheist or a theist. That's what they tell me. You're one or the other. If you're not a theist, you're an atheist. And since you have atheist or not theist, theist or not theist is a strict dichotomy by the law of negation, then you must be also a non-theist. So rocks are a non-theist and an atheist according to Arn Ra and atheists who prescribe the definition of atheism. So you guys with me so far on that? That's just the preliminary. My audio's pretty low. Let me see if I can kick that up a little bit. I got the AC on, so it does run in the background, and that. Let me turn off my compressor, my noise suppression, and put a gain on. Gain 5. All right, is that better? That should be a little louder. I put a gain on. Kimamaki, is that better? And so let's walk through this flow chart, and I'm going to try to do this while I'm looking at the live chat, which is very little. God dang it. I got 5 things going on here. So, yeah, it's not really easy to look at live chat and do at the same time with the 5 other things I got going on. But I'm trying here. All right, so let's look at the flow chart here. So, yeah, no, Thompson, that's not what it means. Agnostic has nothing to do with you don't know. Thank you. All right. So let's walk through the flow chart here. John writes, as inanimate objects can either be believers nor non-believers. Well, they're non-believers. I mean, you ever have theist or not theist by the law of negation. Everything in the universe must be a theist or not a theist by the law of negation. That's his basic logic. So if rocks are not a theist, then what are they if they're not theist? You're saying a rock is neither a theist nor non-theist, then that violates the law of negation. You have a contradiction. There you go. So let's walk through this. These are my assumptions. Let me know, Kimamaki, if you have an issue with any of these assumptions, because you understand this better than some of the other people here. If you think agnostic means it has anything with knowledge, you're automatically out to lunch. All right, so assumptions. Non-theist equals atheist, or defined as atheist. This is something that prescriptivists have told me that if you're a non-theist, you're an atheist. You're an atheist or non-theist. Same thing. But they're not. Again, this is an argument. This is a reductio. Argumentum ad absurdum is what this is. Assumption. Atheism is the same as atheism. They also tell me this. And I also assume that a rock is not a person. I don't think that's controversial. So these three assumptions are what atheists have told me in the past and continue to tell me. This is their argument. Not mine, their argument. So these are the definitions I use. And all five of these, or excuse me, four of these, one is law of negation, but all four of these are straight from Google definitions. I'm going to use the definitions that atheists use. So an atheist is a person who disbelieves or lack a belief in the existence of God or gods. A theist, a person who believes in the a person who believes in the existence of God or gods, specifically, or a creator who intervenes in the universe. Now, again, that deals with classical theism, but we're going to put that to the side. We're going to be in non-classical theism here, so it's any God or gods. Non-theist, a person who does not believe there is a God or gods, a person who is not a believer in theism. And by the way, notice that says not a believer in theism. That means not a believer in the proposition of theism. It doesn't mean that they don't believe theism doesn't exist. This is why words have meanings and sentences have senses to them and cognitive interpretations. When it says a person who is not a believer in theism, it's clearly not meaning you don't believe there's no such thing as theism. It means you don't believe in the proposition of theism. This is why when you say that atheism is a negation of theism, it is not the negation of theism as the concept. It is the negation of the proposition of theism. For the same reason, a person who is not a believer in theism has nothing to do with being not believing in the category of theism, but the proposition of theism. That's how it's interpreted. Right? Hi, autistic. And then atheism, disbelief or the lack of belief in the existence of God or gods. So does anybody have a problem with these assumptions or definitions so far? Travis says, isn't a theist a believer in one God and a disbeliever in many gods? Well, a theist is somebody who believes in at least one God here. A theist is a person who believes in the existence of God or gods. At least one God. It doesn't matter what God. Pick a God. It doesn't matter. We're going global theism here. So if you believe at least one God, if you believe Zeus exists, you're a theist in this schema. Because this is under non-classical theism. Okay? So let me know. Do you guys have an issue with the assumptions, which are based upon what atheists have told me, or the definitions, which are straight from Google? Does anybody have an issue with that? And let me know if you don't. Then I'll continue. Well, I sip my coffee. I do have to head out here soon. I got a full day today, so I got to be heading out here. So I do have some time, but let's make it quick. Let's see if I can keep this down to an hour. So let me know. Come on, guys. Do you guys have no issues with the definitions or assumptions? I don't want to continue until somebody tells me they have no issues or they do have an issue. So come on, live chat. Travis says, do theists believe in all gods or just one of many? Just one God. That's all that matters. If you believe in at least one God, you're a theist in this. Simple. So nobody's going to tell me if they have an issue or not? Like, really? All right, I'm going to assume then nobody has an issue with any of these. And then later on, if people leave a comment, they have an issue, they can let me know. So, let's start here. Are rocks atheist? If yes, like Arn Ra argues that rocks are atheists. That is his argument. He argues rocks are atheist because rocks do not believe in God. And there's only atheists or theists. They call that a strict dichotomy. You're either an atheist or you're a theist. There's no in between. There's no middle ground, they claim. Okay, if there's no middle ground, then everything in the universe is either an atheist or theist. Arn does accept that for his definitions. He does recognize that. But using his definitions, rocks are atheists. That's why he argues rocks are atheists, because he argues there's no middle ground between theist and atheist. He argues that a theist is somebody who believes in a God, an atheist is somebody who doesn't. That's his his argument, right? So, are rocks atheist? If yes, then that's a contradiction from the definition of atheism. Of atheist. Again, if you're going to be a prescriptivist, if you prescribe atheism, you got to prescribe all the other definitions. So the definition of an atheist is a person who disbelieves or lack a belief in the existence of God. We've already established that a rock is not a person by initial assumptions. That is a contradiction. That is a contradiction. So, no, let's say rocks are not atheists. Are rocks non-theist? Yes. Okay, well, if rocks are non-theists, and that's a contradiction in the initial assumptions. and definition of non-theist. I should probably change this capital. I don't know why I have the capital here and not here. I'll fix that. But whatever. Minor issue there. So if the definition of non-theist is a person who does not believe there's a God or gods, or a person who is not a believer in theism, then how is it that a rock is a non-theist by definition? Because a rock is not a person. So there's a contradiction there. It's also a contradiction by the initial assumption, because a rock is not a person. So if rock is not a person, it cannot be a non-theist. So you have a problem here. So you just say, okay, rocks are not a theist. Okay, then rock's a theist? Well, if you say yes, then you have a contradiction from the definition of theist. I'll have to capitalize this definition over here to fix it. So wait, if you have here's a problem here. If you have a contradiction from the definition of theist here, then the only other option is rocks are not a theist. But then you have a contradiction by law of negation, because rocks must either be a theist or not a theist. A or not A. Theist or not theist is always true. It's a tautology. Atheist or not atheist. Theist or not theist. Always true. So if rocks are neither a theist or an atheist by definitions here, then there's a problem with the law of negation. It's a contradiction. So I think I have exhausted all the possibilities here, but if you see an issue in the flowchart, let me know. Because by definitions, there's contradictions if you have prescriptivism. If you start saying you're an atheist by definition by an atheist who lacks a belief, if you lack a belief, you're by definition atheism, then you're prescribing that definition. If you prescribe that definition, you have to prescribe all the other definitions. You can't just pick and choose. You can't just say, I'm going to be a prescriptivist, but only choose the definitions I want to prescribe. No, it doesn't work that way. That's special pleading. So does anybody want to walk through here and play the little flowchart game? Does anybody want to try? John says, animals do not believe in God because they have no use for human created concepts. Okay, if animals do not believe in God, then they can't be an atheist. But if they can't be an atheist, then what are they? Because I've been told that atheism and theism are strict dichotomy. Everything is either a theist or an atheist. Right? Because if by the law of negation you have theist or not theist, and now not theist now becomes atheist by the atheist community of Austin or by Aaron Ra, now you have atheist versus theist, and there's no middle ground. I've been told by Jason Jewell that there's no middle ground between atheist and theist. Okay, then everything is either an atheist or theist. Everything. There's no middle ground, then everything has to fall between in one of those two categories. A Flame Up says for $2, we have scripts too, Darth Dawkins. Yeah. Well, I don't mind scripts if they're logical. That's what flowcharts are for. Thank you, Hank. Right? Oh, Autistic Shill, thank you for gifting some memberships. Don't think there's enough people right here to take up on that, but if they do, then that's great. That's great. Thank you. If not, it'll be the next time. They'll come on. Somebody will get them. And by the way, I'm getting the dumbest responses on social media for this particular argument. I mean, just the dumbest. The absolute dumbest. One sec. All right. So, does anybody want to do the flowchart, or does anybody see any initial errors or issues with the flowchart? I don't see anything explained minor. I got to capitalize D, but that's for the definition. But other than that, I'm not really seeing any errors. You know? Brick says Darth Dawkins uses that argument. Well, Darth Dawkins is an idiot. He says there's no middle ground between atheism and theism, which is wrong. There it clearly is. Agnostic is the middle ground between atheist and theist in philosophy. Matt Dillahunty is wrong on that. 100% wrong. I would bet money on it. I'll bet $100 right now. Easily. He's wrong. 100%. I guarantee it. He's literally, if you go read the literature, it will show you that he's wrong on that. Travis says the middle ground is how you explain all other deities. Yeah, which is non-belief theist and non-belief of atheist. But rocks can't be agnostic because agnostic requires suspension of judgment. So rocks would be considered to be innocent toward the proposition, meaning they have no position the other way. Now, there's an issue with innocence being an intentional verb, but I'll let I'll let atheists try to argue that point. You know, so far nobody's brought that up, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know if you want to call See, I would say that atheists, clearly rocks are not theists because they're not theists, and they have to be either one or the other. But if they're not theists, then they have to be atheists by prescriptivism, that atheists say you must be one or the other. Yeah. Travis says, why is the rock necessary in the argument? Because if you're only allowed two choices, Travis, by the law of negation, you have atheist or not atheist, right? And you just relabel non-atheist as excuse me, you have theist or not theist. And if you just relabel not theist as atheist, now you have the dichotomy of theist and atheist, which is a strict dichotomy in their view. So all people are theists, and if you're not a theist, you must be an atheist. If you're not a theist, it doesn't matter what you are. Rock must be a non-theist, which must be an atheist according to them. Yeah, rocks can't be innocent either. I get that if you're going to talk about intentionalities, Hank. I do agree, but that's really the best verb that I can see for that. Would I argue that? Yeah, I would argue that you really don't need intentionality because innocent isn't really an active verb. Innocent is actually you're unaware, right? You don't need sentience to be unaware of something. A rock is unaware of the proposition. So I have no problem with innocent being used to describe the disposition towards a proposition, meaning for any inanimate object. I don't have an issue with that because I don't think you need intentionality for innocence. It just means unaware, and rocks are unaware, right? Travis says you just said people, not rocks. But yeah, but everything in the universe, according to the law of negation and complementary set theory, must be in the set of theist or not theist. Everything. There are no exceptions in logic. And if you're not in the set of theist, then what are you in? You're in the set of things that are not theist. Rocks are not theist. But Aaron Raw, Matt Dillahunty, the atheist community of Austin, and Online Atheist argue that not theist are the same thing as atheist. They say that atheism and theism are strict dichotomy. There are no other options, which means that rocks are atheist. That is why Aaron Raw argues that rocks are atheist. Right? So, anyways, Kiwamaki, Autistic Shield, thank you for the gift. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hopefully somebody will get those. So, this is the problem with prescriptivism. If atheists want to argue that atheism is the disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God or gods, and if you meet that condition that you lack a belief, if that's sufficient, then that's prescriptivism. If it's descriptivism, all this goes away, which I'm a descriptivist. If you're a descriptivist, none of this matters because it describes an atheist. Well, what describes an atheist? Somebody who disbelieves or lacks a belief in the existence of God, meaning that they lack a belief. That's true. But it does not mean if you lack a belief, you must be an atheist. If you lack a belief in the existence of God, it doesn't mean by definition you adhere to atheism, because that's prescriptivism. It describes the position. All atheists lack a belief in God, just like all theists lack a belief in the non-existence of God. But it isn't the case that if you lack a belief in the non-existence of God, you must be a theist. So why is it if you lack a belief in the existence of God, you're somehow prescribed to be an atheist? You have to have consistency here in both your ontology and your epistemology. So the atheist that is arguing that atheism, by definition, is a disbelief or the lack of belief in the existence of God and is not using that to describe an atheist, because all atheists in philosophy disbelieve there's a God. Atheism is the belief that God does not exist in philosophy. It's not merely lack of belief. But lack of belief describes that, yes. So if you adhere to atheism in the philosophical sense of mere disbelief and not mere lack of belief, and you adhere to descriptivism as English is a described language, all these issues go away. There are no contradictions. But they're not going to do that. They're going to roll with this and have contradictions in their ontology and their epistemology. I try to eschew contradictions. I don't like having contradictions in my beliefs. But they do apparently have no issue with contradictions. Because once they start prescribing atheism and saying if you lack a belief, you must be an atheist, and there's only atheist or theist, that leads to contradictions and other definitions. Clearly. So, you guys get that? We all good? We all caught up? So Travis says atheist means you believe all deities are made up. Well, if that's the case, then atheism is not merely the lack of belief. It is the disbelief, which means there's a middle ground between theism and atheism. Theism is the belief there's a God. Atheism is the belief there's not a God. And the middle ground is no belief either way, which means that Aaron Ra and Matt Dillahunty and the atheist community of Austin and American Atheist and Atheist Republic, all of them are wrong, which I've said for years. Logic proves they're wrong. They're wrong. You know, this is not a matter of definitions. This is a matter of logic. This is a flowchart here. I am using their definitions. So they would have to tell me which definition they don't accept and why that they accept the definition for atheism but not the one for atheist. Theism means you believe all deities are made up except one. Well, that's not in the definition here. You're making up a new definition. The definition is a theist, a person who believes in the existence of a god or gods, a god. You're changing the definition, Travis. I'm using the definition that is Google. So, yeah, you don't get to make up your own definitions here. This is the definition that's on Google. I'm using that in my argument to show that if you start using these things prescriptively, you have contradictions, period. I don't see a way out of this. Now, does somebody want to play the flowchart game, or can I just end it here and you guys can run with it? Let me fix that little capitalization error, re-upload these to my social media, and then we'll go from there. So ask me questions because I'm going to wrap this up. Like I said, I got things to do. But I think this proves beyond any doubt that atheists who argue there's no middle ground between atheists and theism have huge contradictions. Anybody who argues that atheism is merely a lack of belief as a sufficiency condition has huge contradictions in their ontology and their epistemology. You know, Travis, you're not using logic. I'm using logic here. You're making up your own definitions that are relevant to the argument. Stick with the argument. I mean, you can't just make up your own definitions here. That's not how you assail an argument. Yeah. Wait, I'm being nonsensical, Travis? How am I nonsensical? I'm making perfect logical sense here. This is pretty straightforward. Where is there an error here? What definitions do you reject? What assumption do you reject? What part of the flowchart do you reject? How is it nonsensical? Other people have understood it just fine. I ran it with a few people, and intelligent people have looked at this, and they said that, yeah, they don't see an issue with it. It makes sense to them. So if it's nonsensical to you, maybe that's an epistemic issue that you have, because it makes sense to everybody else that I've talked to so far. So where is it not making sense to you? I'll help you understand it, but you have to tell me where in here are you confused? Do you not accept the assumptions? Do you not accept the definitions? Or do you see an error in the flowchart? I don't know where else you can go in this flowchart. It all terminates properly according to definitions that I can see. Sammy says, everything you said don't make sense. Well, that's a problem that you might have, right, to understand, not anybody else. If you say it doesn't make sense, you need to explain to me why it doesn't. I can't help you if it doesn't make sense to you. You have to maybe look at the logic, understand some logic, maybe read some books on logic. I will try to. That's what I'm here for. But you have to work with me here. Brick with Eyes says, why does it have to be descriptive? Aren't most theists just describing themselves? No. They're prescribing. Brick with Eyes. They're saying, if you lack a belief, you're an atheist to me. If you meet the condition for atheism by definition, that's what they tell me, you're an atheist. That is prescriptivism. Travis says, you're attacking a straw man. How am I attacking a straw man? I literally use their definitions. This is their argument. How can a rock have a belief? It can't. That's the point. But Aaron Ra argues that rocks are atheist. That's his argument. How am I straw manning him? Somebody says, you don't even know what agnostic means. Well, I really do, actually. More so than anybody here. Trust me on this. I guarantee it. I know what agnostic means in multiple different senses. I've done this for 10 years, Sammy. I know what agnostic means. So if you want to have a discussion on that, we can. But don't come here and say that I don't understand basics when literally I'm known as the a-holy pope of agnosticism, and I'm known for this. So, yeah, don't tell me what I do and don't know. I understand agnostic extremely well. Yeah, Sam, if you want to debate, let's set it up. I'll debate you on agnostic. Yeah, let's do it. Travis, how do agnostics explain the existence of religions on supernatural gods? I have no idea the question. Agnostic means that you do not have a position either way. You don't believe in God exists, and you don't believe that God does not exist. That's what it means per Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and pretty much every single solitary source I can read in the academic literature. That's what it means in modern contemporary analytical philosophy. So if you disagree with that, take it up with the experts, because I promote rigor. I promote philosophy. I promote atheology. I promote a actual understanding of these topics. So if you go to take a course in these and you have intro to philosophy, if you listen to me, you're pass. If you listen to Matt Dillahunty, you'll fail. That's as simple as that. Simple as that. If you listen to me, you'd pass the class, you'd get the question right. If you listen to Matt, you'd fail. Simple. KK says, agnostic as coined is someone who lacks a belief. No, that's not what he coined it as. Agnosticism was coined by Thomas Henry Huxley in the 19th century, and he used it to be a normative epistemic principle based upon the understanding that if you do not have sufficient justification based upon science to have a knowledge or a belief claim, then you are unwarranted to do so. That's not what it means nowadays in modern contemporary philosophy. Yes, Kimo, you're absolutely right. And you don't even need to pretend. Agnosticism never did deal with knowledge. It never did. You can look at the history of the word. It doesn't. If you argue etymology, that's a fallacy. It was a neologism. So you can't argue an etymological fallacy. It is a belief position. Agnosticism is a second-order belief position. It is a belief about a belief. That is correct. Sammy says, agnostic means you don't know. That is it. Well, you're completely wrong about that, Sammy. So set up a time and we'll debate this. Go look at the academic literature. It means that you don't know how to answer the question. So if the question is, does God exist? If you answer yes, you're a theist. If you answer no, you're an atheist. If you answer, I don't know how to answer that, you're agnostic. That's how it actually works in academia. Seriously, that's how it works, Sammy. Believe it, don't believe it, whatever. But until you can show me evidence that logic is wrong, or that every single academic expert out there that has opined upon this and have written about it in the academic literature is wrong, your opinion means nothing to me. Show it or you don't know it, as Aaron Ra would say. If you can't show it, you don't know it. You didn't look it up in academic literature. I guarantee you didn't. Give me your academic source that says that Stanford and IEP is wrong. Go ahead. What source do you have that shows that Stanford Encyclopedia, Dr. Paul Draper is wrong? Or that Dr. Bruce McConkie, who wrote the paper for the Internet Encyclopedia on atheism, is wrong? No, the Google... okay, so you're a prescriptivist. The Google definition is giving you the original understanding of the term, not as how it's used in modern contemporary analytical philosophy. I don't need to be an expert. I cite experts. You don't, clearly. So you're a prescriptivist, Sammy? If that's the Google definition and you say, I'm going to prescribe that definition for agnosticism, then what do you call the position of somebody who has no position either way on a proposition? Let's say the proposition is 1 + 1 = 2. You can believe it true, you can believe it false, or you can have no position either way. What do you want to call that position that has no position either way of that, Sammy? Do you want to come in? By the way, I'll set up, I'll do a voice thing right now, Sammy. You want to come in and do this real time? I'm happy with that. You want to come in and do it voice? But answer my question. If the proposition is 1 + 1 = 2, oh, I'll make it simple. X = X if you can't do math. X = X. You believe that's true? You believe it's false, or you have no position either way. According to Stanford, if you have no position either way on a proposition, that is called agnostic. What do you want to call that proposition? Or what do you want to call that position? KK says, utmost confidence. Or to simplify it, someone who lacks belief due to not having confidence in the answer, provided to a number of things, including theism, atheism. I'm not quite understanding that. But Hank, yeah, Terry Howardism. Yeah, this is like Terrence Howard level math, guys, if you started making up your own stuff. So, Sammy, what do you want to call that position? X = X. You believe it true, you believe it false, or you have no position either way. What do you want to call the position of neither having a position either way? Because in English, if you go look it up in some dictionaries, they'll tell you if you have no position either way, it's agnostic. If I say that the mayor was agnostic on the proposition of building the mall downtown, that means he has no position either way. That's what agnostic means there. In English, that's the sense of the word. So if I say I have no position either way, according to Stanford, that's agnostic. What do you want to call that word? So this is why you don't get to make your own stuff up, Sammy. This is why prescriptivism is not used in English, because you're prescribing the Google definition for agnosticism, which leads to issues. Yes, Thomas Henry Huxley coined the word. Yeah, I guess so. I understand what you're saying, but he literally coined the word to be a principle, a normative epistemic principle. It was a principle in epistemology that if you didn't have sufficient justification based on scientific grounding, you cannot formulate a belief or a knowledge claim. Yeah. Sammy, look it up right now, agnostic. I just did. I have it right here. Stanford Encyclopedia. Here, I'll read it to you. Agnostic. This is peer-reviewed paper. Peer review. You know what peer review is? It means experts have looked at it. Agnostic. Ready? An agnostic is a person who has entertained the proposition that there is a God, but believes neither that it is true nor that it is false. Now, if you want to argue that Stanford Encyclopedia is wrong, you're going to have to convince me using actual expert citation, not appeal to prescriptivism. That is not an argument with me, because if you appeal to prescriptivism, then you have to start having contradictions in your epistemology. So Travis says, you need a brain to be a theist, but you don't need a brain or more to be a rock with an atheist. Then it violates but then you have contradictions in the definitions. Going back to the flowchart. Look at the flowchart. If you look at the flowchart and you say, okay, you can't be a theist, but you don't need one to be an atheist, then what's the definition of an atheist? A person. How is a rock an atheist if the definition is a person who disbelieves or lack a belief in the existence of God or gods? You violated the definition. You have a contradiction there, Travis. Somebody said that's wrong. Well, I don't care anymore. If you can't show me it's wrong, you don't know it. So show me it's wrong, or you get a timeout, because I'm limited on time and you're just trolling at this point. I go by facts. I go by evidence. I go by logic. Show me that SPP is wrong, or I just get a timeout so I can finish this thing. Oh, it's wrong. Okay, that's a wrong definition. You're a prescriptivist, and if you're a prescriptivist, then you have clearly errors or contradictions in your ontology and your epistemology. So, Sammy, you're a prescriptivist, correct? Correct, Sammy? You're a prescriptivist? Tamara says, are you an atheist? Irrelevant. Chemo Maki, proved, unproved, disproved. Yeah, sort of. I mean, these are epistemic dispositions, right? I can believe something even though it hasn't been proved yet, right, Chemo Maki? I can believe that the Riemann hypothesis or the trim prime conjecture is true. I don't have to prove it to do that. I can have justifications why I believe it. So I wouldn't use those three things because it doesn't allow for epistemic justifications. Now, I would use those three for my other argument that if you start prescribing things, then proved would be the S1 position on the semiotic square of opposition. Disproved would be the S2 position on the semiotic square of opposition. And unproved would be the subalternation of the not S2 and the not S1 position. So I would agree with you there, Kimamaki. Proved, unproved, disproved would be great for my atheist semantic collapse argument, because what the atheist is doing is saying, oh, I want unproved to mean disproved, right? That's what they're doing. Yeah. No, Travis, your curiosity is not irrelevant, but you need to be a little more specific. So you have to tell me, do you accept it? Let's walk through this. I got like 10 more minutes. Travis, do you accept the assumptions or definitions? If not, tell me which one you don't assume. Which definition you reject here? These are from Google. Tell me which ones you reject here. One sec. Dang it. What am I doing here? Travis says, is an agnostic essentially saying they can't know? No, look at Travis, answer my question because I got to go. Do you accept the assumptions or the definitions? Yes or no? And Sammy, you need to just show me which definition, you need to answer. Are you a prescriptivist? So real quick, Sammy, you're a prescriptivist, yes or no? Travis, do you accept the definitions or assumptions? Yes or no? Then I got to go. KK says, I'm not seeing anything I disagree with on there. Thank you. Well, then we'll leave it at that. Thank you, KK. I appreciate it. So look this over, KK, because I trust your judgment. You understand this stuff. Let me know if you see any errors. I will fix the capitalization. But so far, I don't see any errors here. And I think this thoroughly proves that people that prescribe definitions, argumentum ad prescriptorium is the fallacy that I coined for it. It leads to other contradictions with other definitions. This is why Thomas says you have the wrong definition of agnostic. Bye. Yeah, peace out, guy. This is what happens with people like live in their echo chambers and they don't want to learn anything. That's called indoctrination. This is why New Atheism (TM) is religion to me. They treat it as a religion. They don't want to take any new information. They don't want to understand logic or philosophy, and they just put their fingers in the ears and they run away. So they're a bunch of cowards. My proof here proves it. I have 2 new papers out. So go to academic.edu Find me there. I'll try to link them in the video description. But I have 2 papers out. No, wait. I have 1 paper out, 2 arguments. I'm sorry. 1 argument I didn't put on Academic EDU. I put it on my blog. But go read my new argument. It's based upon this. And let me know what you think. And like I said, I'll put it in the video description. With that, guys, I got to go. Thank you very much. And let me know if you find any errors, and I'll fix it. Thank you. Later.